Welcome back, America. Hugh, joined by Dr. Michael Oren, calling in from Israel. Happy almost New Year to you, Dr. Oren. Thank you. I hope you have returned safely from your Swans War book tour, which went on longer than any book tour I've ever seen or heard of in America.
I don't know. I'm only 32 years old, and I look like this after that trip, I tell you.
But you sold a lot of books, right?
I damn well better. I'll see. We'll find out. Reports are not in yet.
Dr. Oren.
They're very happy. They're happy.
What is New Year's Eve like in Tel Aviv?
It's wild. In South Tel Aviv, they celebrate. They call it here Sylvester. Okay, like a cartoon cat, and you go out for Sylvester.
And is it raucous?
Yeah, it's raucous. Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, have fun. What I want to talk to you about is from the times of in Israel. Who's who in the new Netanyahu-led government? They're all in. 31 ministers have been sworn in. Talk to us about those that matter most in the opinion of Dr. Michael Oren, former Deputy Minister of Israel, former Deputy Prime Minister of Israel, and former Israeli Ambassador to the United States, and all the other stuff you've done.
Okay, former book tour, I don't know, insanity. Here it is. The good news and the challenging news. Okay, the good news is that Netanyahu has put together a very formidable foreign policy staff. Okay, so he's got himself, of course. He has a national security advisor named Tzachi Hanegbi, who's a longtime politician, a longtime associate of Netanyahu. I worked with him for years in the Knesset. He was the head of the...
What's the name again, Michael?
Tzachi Hanegbi. It's not easy to say.
Okay.
And he's best known in Israel as Gula Cohen's son. Gula Cohen was a very famous right-wing politician and claimed to be the person who was the key person who made the call to the British at the King David Hotel bombing in 1947 and warned them to get out, and they ignored her. So he comes with a lot of sort of bona fides. He'd be the equivalent of a DAR in your country. And,
okay, got it.
Okay, Tzachi Hanegbi, he's a good guy. Work with him. He's smart. It's a good appointment. He has Yoav Gallant. We've talked about Yoav Gallant before on the show. He is the defense minister. I worked with Yoav for years in the Knesset. He's got what they say in Hebrew. He's got blood on his boots. He's the former commander of our Navy SEALs. Tough guy. Good person for defense. He has Ron Dermer, who you know.
Did he get appointed foreign minister?
He got appointed to the minister for strategic affairs, which is basically going to be an appointment to be Netanyahu's diplomatic advisor. That's what he'll be doing. He's the closest advisor to Netanyahu, and it's good that he's in the government. And in addition, you have Eli Cohen as foreign minister. Eli Cohen was with me in my party in Knesset. You don't know him. He's very well known in Israel. He speaks English, which is good. He was a former industry minister, so he knows about the international aspects of industry. So it's a formidable group. And
well, explain to me, though, for a second, why did that's splitting the foreign ministry portfolio, isn't it? Or is Ron Dermer's job a new job made up for Ron Dermer?
No, strategic affairs has been a job that's been around for some years now. You can make of it what you will. Usually it's just given to somebody to his a prize. You're in the government. But for Ron, it's very significant because it puts him around the table and it puts him in the security cabinet. Which is the inner cabinet. The Prime Minister of Israel is unlike the President of the United States, is not the commander-in-chief. And to send the army off to war, you need the entire cabinet to approve it, and particularly the security cabinet.
Would you pause and explain that to people? I thought if you needed to drop a nuclear weapon, like when the Temple weapons went aloft in 1973, as people see in Golda's balcony, isn't that a prime ministerial decision?
It is a prime ministerial, but it has to be approved by the cabinet. And
the security cabinet.
The prime minister will not go to war on his own sort of cognizance. He won't. He's going to go to his security cabinet, and then he'll go to the broader cabinet to get wider approval. But keep in mind, the Prime Minister of Israel is not the commander-in-chief, and he doesn't get off the helicopter and salute. He does not do that.
So who is the commander-in-chief?
The government of Israel is the commander-in-chief.
And the security cabinet, this is really basic Israeli 101, but I've been doing this for years, and this is news to me. So does the inner cabinet, like Churchill's war cabinet, have to agree on something by a majority vote before they do something?
I think they have to agree generally on by a vote. I don't know exactly how the vote goes, but the prime minister has to brief them, has to make his case. He'll bring in officers to explain the case. This is why we have to undertake this mission or that mission, or go to war. But it's very important also for the legitimacy of the government in ordering the country to war, because we have a citizens' army. And the government is going to be telling Israeli parents to send their kids into battle, or Israeli spouses to send their husbands and wives into battle. You have to have a lot of legitimacy behind that, and so you have to be able to say the government as a whole ordered this operation or ordered this war, and not any individual. And that's extremely important for the the Lockean social contract of Israeli society.
Are there a total of 5 then in the security cabinet, Dr. Oren?
It changes. The number changes. They just ejected one of the ultra-Orthodox Haredi ministers wanted to be in that cabinet, and there was such a hue and cry about it. I don't want to besmirch your name anything, but a hue and cry was about and not having a guy who didn't serve in the army and whose kids were not serving in the army in the Security Council cabinet. And they suddenly realized that would be a problem with legitimacy. That would be very difficult for a security cabinet to order Israelis into war when the members of that cabinet didn't serve in the army. So you don't have that problem in the United States. Most of your leaders did not serve in the army, but they're ordering soldiers into battle. You don't have that legitimacy part because it's embedded in the Constitution. We don't have that. So right now you've got 5 members in the security cabinet, but that might expand, is what you're telling me. The national security advisor, the defense minister, the foreign minister, the strategic minister, and Netanyahu. Yeah, I just mentioned the 5 who are in the sort of the foreign policy think tank, the incubator. And people who think alike, they think like Netanyahu, they are extremely focused on the Iran issue. So all that is the good news. It's good to have a government like that. I just got off Israeli radio, and the media here is attacking Bibi left and right, of course, mostly left. And I got on and say, no, guys, this is actually a very good series of appointments, and we're in good hands. The challenge, though, and I was very candid about that. The challenge of that is not to let internal political decisions impair our ability to conduct an effective foreign policy. And let me unpack that. So you have very radical racist elements in the government who are controlling key positions, including the position that will determine settlements in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, security issues vis-a-vis the Palestinians, issues relating to Israel liberalism toward gay rights and other minority rights, threats to judicial review in this country, and that's one of the key communalities that we have with the United States and other democracies. We have a Supreme Court that can rule pieces of legislation unconstitutional. It's a core concept in democracy. All that is being challenged here in this government. And I have been in contact with American officials and leaders of the American Jewish community. Of course, everybody is nervous, and everyone understands that if these policies are carried through, it will have an impact on our relations with the United States, as well as with other parts of the free world. And that will become acutely critical if and when we make a decision to defend ourselves against Iran.
I got a question, Michael. I teach con law, and I will teach people that developing in 1803 and since, a Supreme Court decision on what the Constitution means cannot be overturned. But a Supreme Court decision throwing out a law can be overturned immediately, and often has been, by the passage of a new law that addresses whatever the defect is. I don't understand Israel to have a written constitution the way I understand U.S. to have, and I understand the Israeli Supreme Court to be somewhat activist, and it really ticks off the right. So isn't there a common ground there to rein them in without overturning the basic law?
I would hope so, and I've been a long-time advocate for reforming the Supreme Court in order to preserve the Supreme Court. Let me explain the problem as easy as I can. People vote for Knesset, and so the composition of Knesset is a mirror into what's happening politically among the Israeli electorate. And the Israeli electorate over the last 30 years has moved precipitously rightward. There's no left in Israel anymore. The Supreme Court, by contrast, has been pretty much marching in place since 1990 in terms of its worldview, which is very centrist, even central left. The reason is that Supreme Court judges in Israel are chosen by sitting Supreme Court judges, as well as by other jurists. There's some.
It sounds like the editorial board at the New York Times. It keeps going left because they keep selecting everybody else on the editorial board.
But it's not just that. It's any American university. It's pretty much like that, too. You're not going to give tenure to somebody on your staff who doesn't agree with you, who thinks you're full of crap. It's not going to happen. So, so they stay in place. And the problem is Israel's moved. So we now have a Knesset that feels one way, and the Supreme Court keeps turning down its rules, its legislation. So people in Knesset are saying, well, the heck with this. We're the sovereign. No one elected you. In America, you get not one, but two opportunities to determine the composition, to influence the opposition of the Supreme Court. You vote for president, you vote for Senate. We don't have either one of those. And in fact, I know from my own family in America, the composition of the Supreme Court is a major issue in American elections. Here, it's a non-issue. No one talks about it because no one has influence. So we have to reform the way Supreme Court justices are chosen so they better reflect shifts in public opinion. And yes, we have to rein them in because Aaron Barak, who was the president of the Supreme Court for many years in the 90s and into this century, had this notion that everything is adjudicable. Everything. Whether you hang a light bulb here or hang a light bulb there. And the answer should be no, that there should be limits to what issues the Supreme Court can preside. And that also has to change. But the idea is to preserve judicial review, because if we don't have judicial reviews, that will be a major blow to our relationship with other democracies. And it will mean that minorities will not have protection. And that's really what the Supreme Court is about. It's not about just reflecting what the majority thinks. It's about projecting, but it's also protecting minority rights.
Michael, if you're able to stay for an extra segment, I would like you to. Is that going to be possible?
That's fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we got 1 minute to the break. That was what my alarm was. The Justice Minister, who is that, and do you like that appointment?
I do. Yarin Levine is a very smart guy. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. He is very right wing. He is. You could disagree with him, and he's interested in doing this overpass law on the Supreme Court. I hope he doesn't follow through all the way and do away with judicial review, but reform the way judges are chosen. But he's a good guy.
And stable and center right and smart.
No, he's not center right. I think he's pretty right, but he's very stable, very smart, and I have a high personal regard for him.
Okay, when we come back, we've done 5 out of 31. So I'm just going to ask you to run through 26 and tell me who the superstars on the horizon. Who's your Congressman Gallagher, your Congressman Mike Waltz, the people who are going to be running the country in 15 years? Are they in this government? You've got 5 minutes to figure that out during the break, all right? Yeah. Dr. Michael Oren will be right back, America. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined from Tel Aviv by Dr. Michael Oren, longtime guest on the Hugh Hewitt Show, former Deputy Prime Minister of Israel, former Israeli Ambassador to the United States, author of many wonderful books, most recently Swan's War, which is available in bookstores now. So, Dr. Oren, I was looking at my Times of Israel. There are 31 members. We've covered 6. There's the education minister, the transportation minister, the business. There are so many ministers in Israel. Which ones matter the most, and who are the superstars that will be prime minister in the future?
By the way, you're not supposed to have more than 18 ministers, and we've thrown that one out. And it's problematic because not only do the ministers cost a lot of money, but they can't initiate legislation, and they can't vote in committee, which means that the poor people who don't get a ministerial position, and there are not that many of them in the government, have to do all the work of doing the heavy lifting legislatively and all the voting. I was a non-minister for about 2 months, and I didn't sleep for those 2 months. They would just run me from committee to committee. As I'd walk in, they'd tell me how I'm voting. I didn't even know what I was voting for, but I got into great shape. It was terrific. Lost a lot of weight running around. Okay, so the rising stars, you're going to see for the education minister, a gentleman named Yoav Kish from the Likud. Kish is a former pilot. His father was a famed World War II hero. He's a terrific guy, and he's a rising star. The Speaker of the Knesset is Amir Ohana, former Justice Minister, a Likud person, a lawyer, and openly gay. He's married with a child. And so our Speaker of the Knesset is now a gay man. And this is in a government that has anti-gay factions in it. It's going to be very interesting.
That's interesting. That's significant.
That is significant. Our relationship with the LGBT community, because we were always a world leader in LGBT rights. We have the largest gay pride parade in Asia here that goes right beside my window. It's usually 250,000 people. It's amazing. So we're going to see what the future of that's going to be. We never had, don't ask, don't tell in this country. So though that's a rising. You have an agricultural minister, Avi Dichter, who's an old buddy. He's the oldest member of the government. He's 75 years old, and he is, after Ehud Barak, the most decorated commando in Israel's history.
Oh my!
I sound like I'm a broken record here, but I have very high regard for Avi. Avi is a real hero, and down to what they call salt of the earth, just a down to the earth guy. I'm very fond of him. We have Gila Gamliel, one of the few women. There's not many women in this government. Only 5 out of 31 are women. That's not good for us. She's now the intelligence minister. You have the transportation minister, Miri Regev, who is a politico. You know, everything about her is politics, politics, politics. But she's a woman. Both these women are from Eastern backgrounds. In America, they'd be called women of color, believe it or not, because they come from the Arab world. And
Michael, if Netanyahu was abducted by aliens tomorrow, the government wouldn't collapse. Who would become the prime minister?
No, I think if the government, Netanyahu would be abducted by aliens, other people would join the coalition. We'd have a much more stable coalition. There, in the opposition are elements who are to the right of Netanyahu, but they won't join the right-wing coalition because they won't sit with Netanyahu.
They're going to stay out for 5 years because of that?
Yes. Yes. And
some of them are going to be dead.
What bothers me is that these individuals, hate Netanyahu more than they love the state of Israel.
Yes.
And if these people would join the government, then some of these real crazies in the government could be ousted. You wouldn't need them. But I don't know. Shimon Peres once told me that the first rule of Israeli politics is that Israeli politicians always prefer collective to individual suicide. And
look, I have one more question. Will this government strike at Iran militarily if Iran gets, according to your intelligence, close to the bomb and the United States is not doing anything?
I hope that yes. I hope that yes. I can't go talk about our capabilities, but I hope that yes. And I'm sure that there are voices within the military establishment saying, listen, the regime is getting shaky. And I wouldn't put much weight on that. I think this regime has 1 million men under arms that can crush any serious uprising. But it's a unique moment, Hugh. America's involved in a proxy war with Iran in the Ukraine. Yesterday, the administration was talking about ways that maybe they'd bomb some of the drone-making factories in Iran. That's amazing. These are the same people were smiling on the stage and shaking hands with Zarif, the foreign minister. You have Iranian regime shooting its own civilians in the street, particularly women. And all of a sudden, all those progressive columnists who were trying to whitewash Iran aren't doing it anymore. But you can't say a nice word about Iran, even in the Democratic Party today, even among
the quartet of tyrants in the world are Xi, Putin, Khamenei, and Kim Jong-il. And the West has got to get it's got to get organized, especially on Iran. That's the easiest one to topple, isn't it?
It is. I would think so. And I think this is a unique opportunity for Israel to get on the same page with the Biden administration and do something. But you got to keep in mind that if they're going to take this legislation against gay people, against, Jews from liberal backgrounds, that's going to empower the people in the progressive wing of the Democratic Party who don't want a close relationship with Israel. And what do? There's domestic politics in America, too.
I would like Benny Gantz and the rest of them to figure that out. Dr. Michael Oren, you've been very generous with your time. You look great on Skype, by the way. You look fabulous on Skype. Can we do this more often?
You and me. That's all I know.
I love your bookshelf. That would get like the A+ rating on the bookshelf raters. Dr. Michael Oren from Tel Aviv, thank you for joining me. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Generalissimo. Don't forget the Grand Old Pod, available only at the Universe. Subscribe to it for your own New Year's Eve present. I'll be back tomorrow.